and what to watch for. We're here today to learn about one of the most significant user experience changes coming to Acumatica. As the platform continues to evolve, the modern UI introduces a refreshed look and feel, new personalization capabilities, and changes to how users interact with screens and data. Today's session is designed to help you better understand why Acumatica is introducing the new modern UI, what it's different from the classic experience, the benefits for users and teams, and some important considerations to keep in mind as your organization may be preparing for the transition. Now, let's do some introductions. So, my name is Chloe Wilson, and I'm honored to be your host today. I serve on the Acumatica Events Committee at acu-connect, and I also work as the Acumatica Marketing Manager at Crestwood Associates. And I would also like to introduce our speaker today, Nicole from Stellar One. Hello, Nicole. We're grateful to have Nicole sharing her experience and insights with us today. And before we turn it over to Nicole, I want to briefly highlight the mission behind acu-connect. Actually, we're going to highlight our sponsor first before we talk about acu-connect. So AvidXchange is a sponsor of this session today, and we are super excited to have our sponsors sponsor sessions like these. You guys are the reasons we continue to have these amazing sessions and education for the Acumatica community. And let's stop into acu-connect. So acu-connect, our mission is to provide Acumatica community members with a network for Acumatica Cloud ERP, education, resources, and collaboration. acu-connect is an independent nonprofit organization built specifically to strengthen the Acumatica ecosystem. We exist to create a network for education, resources, and collaboration across the entire community. Membership is completely free, so if you're not already a member, please feel free, join us at acu-connect.com. And because we operate independently, our events and programming are funded by our sponsors. We want to extend a sincere thank you to our charter sponsors, premium sponsors, and supporting sponsors. Their commitment allows us to continue delivering events like these and expanding on opportunities throughout the year. Also, we have a few save the dates. So our next session coming up, which I'm looking forward to, this was actually a session at Summit. So if you did miss it, it's a great opportunity to tune in on June 25th, 30 CRM tips in 60 minutes. So much content is going to be provided in this session. So really looking forward to it. And then also September 24th and 25th is the 7th annual acu-connect virtual conference. So if you haven't registered, get your team registered. You can go to this QR code in the bottom corner and register for all of our events. And then last but not least, we do have a session coming up in November 17th called Acumatica Tips and Tricks, the Q4 2026 edition. This is going to be a great session with a lot of insights. Definitely recommend you guys to join with us.
Chloe, real quick, could you pull up the AvidXchange slide for a moment?
Yeah, of course.
I have a little blurb to read about that. I should have given that. So AvidXchange is a leading provider of accounts payable AP automation and payment solutions built for mid-market businesses. With 25 years of industry experience, AI-enhanced software, and a network of more than 1.3 million suppliers, AvidXchange helps businesses improve efficiency, visibility, and control over payments. As Acumatica's selected payments partner, AvidXchange is bringing a seamless embedded payment experience directly into the Acumatica platform to help customers simplify financial workflows and scale with confidence. So thanks, Avid, for sponsoring. And I'll give it back to Nicole and Chloe.
Perfect. Nicole, you can go ahead and share your screen.
Thanks. I think in 1 minute. Okay. Thanks, Darcy. Switch over. Okay, I think everyone should be able to see my screen now. And I just want to run through a few quick slides to talk about, really what modern UI is. I mean, I think everyone's been talking about modern UI. There's been a lot of chatter. And some people hear that, we talk about Acumatica rolling out this modern UI, and some people might think, oh, it's just a UI. What's the big deal that the user interface is changing, right? User interfaces change all the time, right? But it's really more than just a facelift. It's a complete architecture change of the UI. So our classic UI was really done under legacy ASPX rendering, and all of the modern UI is using TypeScript, CSS, and the Aurelia IO framework also, which, some people might say, well, we've been doing things in C sharp, and what's this new TypeScript thing? And TypeScript's been around since probably 2012. And I would say that TypeScript is probably the baby of C sharp, right? It's the next modern evolution of C sharp and JavaScript. Most modern web inter applications are using TypeScript. So that ability to use TypeScript now in the UI allows for much more granular customizations when it comes to modifying the screens, doing one-to-one mapping between views and fields, helps align different server and client behavior. And what Acumatica cites as a statistic, which I thought was really interesting, and I know, at least for myself, I've noticed the difference too. But there's an average of 10% speed boost across the platform with utilizing this modern UI architecture. So it's not just about technology. It is just about it's about a better, faster, and more flexible experience and framework to work in. And modern UI, while it is something that's kind of new, it has been a slow rollout to allow people to upgrade customizations, all sorts of other things. We first started seeing modern UI back in Summit in 2023. And then, we've slowly seen different controlled releases. It's become generally available in 25R2, and in 26R2, Classic UI will no longer be available. So people should start now, either testing out modern UI screens or consider moving directly to modern UI now before you absolutely have to in 26R2. And just some of the things, and I'll be going into the Acumatica system in a few minutes, and we'll dive into some of these things a little bit deeper. But just some of the kind of overall changes of what has happened with the user interface. So you'll notice in the Acumatica screens that you have those top field sets up above where they're different blocks of fields where fields are organized together in field sets. And then you have your tab bar in the middle, and then you have your grid down below. And it's still pretty similar to how it was before, but the interface itself is much cleaner, and again, allows for so much more customizations. So admins can use screen customization, the screen configuration mode, to add, move, rename, pin fields. Users can reorder columns and uh, do different things with tabs also, which is really great. Something that people have asked for in a number of screens throughout the years. There's so many tabs on the sales order screen that I don't use. How can I move or reorder those or hide them, right? Those are things that are all now very easily possible with modern UI. And it just helps users get a more personalized experience, right? So you can have those personal customizations, and it's also so much easier for the admins to go in and make some of those system-wide changes too. And I found quite a number of different statistics when doing my research about modern UI. I will say too, maybe shout out to Chloe. I found quite a few modern UI articles and information on Crestwood's site too. So shout out to Crestwood for having great content. There is some of the statistics that I found particularly interesting was 70% reported reduction in search time with quick filters, 30% early adopter reports of faster task completion. People are learning Acumatica faster with implementing UI out of the box. So, it's definitely become for new, especially people who are new to Acumatica, who aren't changing from one UI to another and are learning the system. it is a much more intuitive experience for users to do data entry. There are things like quick filters where the users can easily save, share, and favorite different filters. And people might say we had filters before, but the filters, and we'll take a look at those in a minute, are so much better with the modern UI compared to doing advanced filtering on the classic UI. Dashboards also, I know for myself, constructing dashboards in modern UI is so much faster, and visually too, they look great. And the pivots that they've added to GIs also so much better in the modern UI framework. So just also some just practical transition notes when we talk about modern UI, because not everything is just going to work in modern UI out of the box. So things to watch out for, maybe depending on certain things that might have been customized in the past. Maybe some screens might have issues. Maybe some generic inquiries might have issues. UI specific customizations are going to need validation in modern UI. If you are using ISV solutions, that ISV solution may not be fully compatible with modern UI. So also a consideration to make. And also there were some the modern UI customer portal was not fully released. I do believe that that's out now. But many people are continuing to experiment with it on select screens. So when you enable modern UI, if you're on 25R2, you might notice that you can switch to modern UI depending on what your security rights are. You can do that on a screen by screen basis, or you can do that on a system wide basis. Some things to consider doing before you just start flipping any of those switches is to consider making sure you have a test tenant, or a staging environment or a demo system that you can maybe take a copy of your live Acumatica instance and turn modern UI on in that test instance. Then you can go in and validate, are any of my custom fields not available on the screen? Do we need to do anything with these customizations? So just things to consider. Also, creating something like a test tenant gives an opportunity for your users to get in there and become more familiar with it. So things to consider. And I will say too, just going back to the timeline that we were talking about, because we do have that 26R2 as a final cutoff. If you haven't started looking at modern UI at all yet, and maybe some partners will not not want me to say this, but if you haven't switched to modern UI and you're on 25R2 and you want to start thinking about switching now, ask your partner, what do we need to do to get a test tenant or a staging environment so that we can start testing modern UI and seeing what those changes will look like, or letting those users in so they can feel more comfortable with those UI changes. Because while it is intuitive for new users who are new to Acumatica, people who are used to seeing screens all the time in a certain manner sometimes get thrown for a loop when the UI changes, right? So if you're giving your users an opportunity to get in there and feel comfortable with it before you switch their live instance and switch how they do their jobs every day, it is much better to give them that opportunity to test that out and become familiar with it before you make that change. And I think that's all we have for PowerPoints. And I'm going to switch over into my Acumatica system, and I'm probably also going to turn off my camera and go here. Okay, and switching over into my Acumatica system, and I'm actually going to go into the sales orders primary list first. And while this is popping up, hopefully I didn't get logged out. I want to also add, I know we've got a lot of people who've attended today and a lot of people who are really interested in modern UI. As we're going through this today, we've got a lot of time. So make sure if you have questions, comments, things you like, things you don't like about the modern UI, questions that you have, feel free to put them in the chat. And we'll have plenty of time at the end where we can either address some of those if I have answers, or maybe we'll even have another Modern UI part 2, if there's a lot of questions that we don't necessarily get through. So looking at our sales order primary list in the sales orders in Modern UI, a couple of different small things I want to point out. Filters, like we talked about before, the filters are new and improved with Modern UI. When I click on my filters here on the sales orders list, you'll notice I have those different filters saved like I used to, but shared filters, you're going to see a little icon with people on it. So I know which ones are my shared filters and which ones are not shared filters, right? That's really nice. When I click on the filter settings, you can see exactly what those different filters are. When we go into something like the advanced filter settings, you're going to see a completely new UI for how we construct those different filters. And this might look pretty simple, and you say, why is that so great? Well, if we take a minute and look at what filters looked like in our uh, in our classic UI, okay, we were typically coming in here and selecting different order numbers, putting in the values, putting different conditions in like this, right? So yes, we had filters before. People could build filters before. Filters is not a new concept, right? But in the new UI, being able to just kind of go in and quickly select different fields and say, date is greater than, and do it just like this without you know going in and building a filter uh, in a grid screen is so much easier for the users to uh, be able to accomplish, right? So just a really nice feature. One other thing that I've heard that I guess maybe a pain point or a question that has come up when it comes to Modern UI. A lot of times when people switch over to Modern UI and they look at these grids, a commonly used feature in Acumatica was to right click and say filter by this value. I heard a lot of complaints that you can no longer filter by the value. The shortcut for Shift F will still filter by a value. So even if you don't have that right click to be able to select, filter by the cell value, you can still do the keyboard shortcut to filter by a particular value in those generic inquiry lists. Okay. And I'm going to go into a particular quote here. And again, just looking at our quote screen or sales order screen, you'll notice on the top, we have this little screen configuration button. I'm going to click on the configure and go to my screen configuration. And this is going to bring us into the new form configuration, which opens up a whole world of possibilities. Doing screen customizations previously, could we add fields to a screen? Could we insert fields in different areas or move things around? Absolutely. But that would involve creating a customization project, doing screen modifications. With Modern UI and being able to do the form configuration directly in the screen, we can select something, a particular field element area, and then we can look at all of those available fields and add that wherever we like. Or we can take some of the fields that are currently on the screen, and maybe I don't ever want to see the description on the sales order. I could hide that if I want to, right? One thing that I did last night for something is I took the note text, and I'm going to insert that over here. And you'll notice that my note text from the note attached to the sales order is displayed right here. I can then also say test 2, right? Hit save, and that's updating my note. That's particularly useful for people who, let's say you have e-com orders, you have Shopify or BigCommerce, where you have those notes coming in automatically. Maybe it's an order, a shipping note, or a gift note, right? any of those notes that are over on the orders, a lot of times people say, hey, yeah, the notes come in, but they're up there in that little that little thing. And yeah, it's yellow, but people don't always look at it. I want it right on the screen. You can easily, in just a couple of quick clicks, add that to the screen with no customization project, right? And because I have admin capabilities, I can say apply to all, and whether that be overriding personal configurations or preserving personal configurations, you can push those changes out to your users as an admin. The nice thing too about something like this, Acumatica also gives you options on like your order types for copying notes from the sales order to the shipment. That's just a standard feature of order types in sales orders, right? But if I wanted to, I could go into the shipment screen and do that same customization, add that note text onto the shipping entry screen for the shippers. Then the shippers are also seeing those notes that came over on the sales orders, right? I'm not creating a customization project, no code. As I was doing my research for modern UI, and, we always have this saying that we use throughout the Acumatica space of low code, no code, right? We talk about low code, no code. And the more and more research I was doing about modern UI, I just kept thinking like, wow, modern UI lowers the code in the low code, right? Like a lot of the things that we were already doing low code are even less code now, right? So it's a really nice world of possibilities that a modern UI is opening up. In addition to being able to do those screen configurations there, you can also, let me do some more. If we look down here at things like our tabs, right? I can hit the tab configuration and I can say, you know what? My salespeople, they don't really use hardly any of these screens. Yeah, taxes are calculated, but they don't look at the tax details. Commissions, we don't need those, right? Uh, And maybe you do need these things, but I'm just giving you an example of some of the things that you can do with customizing these screens, right? So I could come into sales orders, and if this is all I ever needed, I could have just 3 tabs down here. Here's my details, here's my payments, and here's my totals. I don't have to look at anything else because I don't need to, right? When I look at most of the screens, you'll also notice some of these little uh, carrots, I'll call them, right? And that can help collapse things also. One of the things too, when we talk about screens and just this overall technology change that's happening with the modern UI and the implementation of TypeScript and things being responsive, a lot of what that's improving is for people using all different kinds of devices, all different, you've got people in the warehouse who might be on an iPad. And sure, there's the Acumatica mobile app for things where the Acumatica mobile app makes sense. But depending on what your workflow is and what you might need, maybe you have an iPad where you need to, run your full version of Acumatica, not necessarily the mobile app. And as you condense those screens, everything resizes so much more nicely. So if you are using, whether it be an iPad or an iPhone or something else, right? Everything is going to render much nicely and or much nicer, I should say, than how it would have in the past with classic UI. So a huge, huge change. Um, Another thing too, there's been so many different things that I've come across with regards to modern UI as far as different features that are coming because of modern UI. Something I wanted to kind of touch on too is that um, going forward after 25R2 and to 26R1, a lot of these features that we're seeing are likely going to be because of modern UI and because of TypeScript, but they're probably not going to say it in that way, right? It's just the UI that we're talking about, and this is a technology that has been uh, implemented into the Acumatica framework, right? So you'll start to notice even more features coming because of this TypeScript change that might not be directly noted as being a particular modern UI enhancement in and of itself. One thing that I came across that I haven't seen get a ton of attention at all is the enhancements that have been made to financial reporting also. There's a lot of different areas throughout the system, whether it be the financial reporting like I'm going to show now, or things within the generic inquiries or import scenarios, right? There's a lot of different areas where the UI previously would get, shall I call it, complicated and potentially be a little bit difficult to navigate with classic UI. Some of those areas in modern UI are just even that much better. When I look at report definitions for financial reports, and we look at something like our row sets, and I'm giving a disclaimer here that I do not write financial reports in Acumatica very often either. So I'm not a huge user of this particular area, but I found this area to be really nice how they made these changes. So if I look at our row sets and look at different information over here with the formatting, you have your data options here, but here under the formatting is really kind of cool too, where as you're sort of designing these different row sets and the column sets, if you want to do different formatting options, you can put those different formats directly in here, and it will in real time give you previews of what those changes will look like, right? So if I want this to be red, I'll see that, the text alignment, it does all of those just like so much more beautifully in real time in with modern UI. Get out of here. And let's see. And let's go back into sales orders a little bit. Do we have any questions or anything, Chloe?
No, it doesn't look like it. Not yet.
There are some in the questions panel. I don't know if maybe you guys can't see that. I could read them if you'd like.
Oh, yeah,
Sure.
go ahead.
Okay. What about column configurations?
Column configurations, sure. So I don't know if necessarily the question is in reference to just in the grids. In the grids here, in the particular screens is really nice how you can select those different what fields you want visible for a particular user, right? So same thing like we kind of saw before as far as different things that you could hide and remove, right? We can control a lot of that within the column configurator too. It does also remember things like, column sizing also. So lots of nice options there.
Okay, there's lots of things on the shared column configuration. It sounds like that is gone, or is that someone said what has happened to share column configuration? Very useful on sales order, invoice, bill, PO entry streams, control what certain user roles could see. A couple people said that shared column configuration push does not stick in 25R2. Okay, there's a lot on that.
Interesting. Okay. Yeah. That's something that I've not particularly run into. Chloe, was that something?
No, sorry.
Oh, I thought I heard something. Sorry. That's not something that I've particularly run into. But that's definitely something that we can look into and maybe discuss on maybe a part two. But my understanding is that when you're doing those different configurations, it is more drilled down from the screen configuration, and then you're applying it to others. I'm not familiar how they were previously sharing column configurations. I never utilized that in the past, so that'll be something I'll have to look into.
Okay, can you move the drop down filter list around?
The drop down filter list around. Maybe on our primary screen here. I'm not sure which one they're talking about. I don't think you can.
Okay, well, there's quite a few questions, so I'm just going to keep moving along. And
Sure,
if you're not
sure.
in the field section, are we able to change the order of them, such as on the sales order? Can we move the customer from the middle section to the first section?
Yeah, I don't believe you can take them out of a particular, like if they're standard fields, I don't believe you can take the standard field out of the section that it's in currently and move it into another one. I was messing around with that a little bit in certain areas. I will say too, one of the things brings up another good topic is attributes also. Let me kind of go into the manage user defined fields because this is a particularly nice area too. And then we can look at potentially moving one of the standard ones if it will let us. So, people use these attribute user defined fields in Acumatica also. So when we add a different user defined field into our sales order entity, for example, and then I'm going to go into my screen configuration and go here, right? If we look at those user defined fields, previously we would notice those on a back tab, a secondary tab. We can now easily add those in here. That's been a lovely, lovely addition. But you will still see areas like, let's say, for example, stock items. Stock items, because it is driven by the class, that functionality of putting the attributes on the stock item is also a little bit different than when you're doing it in a sales order. I'm always, I think anyone who knows me knows I'm also completely honest. And, you know, modern UI is a phased rollout of a timeline, right? So while we see things in its current state now too, I do anticipate seeing there be improvements happening to a lot of the features that we're seeing also. So some of these particular things, as far as like, can this be done or this is still not here, I would anticipate to see improvements happening on 26 R2 for sure on some of these things. Especially also, I want to kind of add that it's great to be vocal about that stuff, right? If there's particular features that are missing, um, now's the time. Like, it's good to be active about those things in the chat because Acumatica needs feedback, right? That's how products get better. So, be loud about those things that maybe are still pain points for that. If we want to look at something like like moving the customer name, I don't know. Like, I think maybe we could potentially hide it here. Let's say I want to hide the customer there and put the customer here. Oh, maybe I can, right? Maybe I can just hide it and move it over here, right? So there you go. I didn't know you could do it, but you can. I can take that standard field from there and move it over there. So, I mean, for the most part, I can't say for sure about the column configuration thing, but things like this of being able to take that standard field and just easily move it like that without doing a customization project, huge, right? Are there any other questions, Darcy, that we have on
There, there are. Let me just kind of filter through some of them that are duplicates
I think
here.
it'd be fun to kind of like, if there's other questions of like, hey, is this possible? Let's just try to do it. And it's either
Okay.
or it's not, right?
This should be one. Will you still be able to export GI data into an Excel spreadsheet if you so desire?
Yeah, I mean, you can still take your generic inquiries and export them to Excel if you'd like. Hopefully Acumatica is giving enough tools like doing pivot tables in the generic inquiries and things like that, where maybe you don't have to. But yeah, you can still export that data to Excel and work with things there, or do OData queries and work on things that way too, for sure.
Okay, what happened to the screen detail tab button to flip between grid view and form view?
The screen detail to, I'm just not sure what they're describing.
Screen detail tab button. Okay. Flip between grid view and
Oh, I actually do know what they're talking about. Yeah.
yeah, not there. Okay.
Yeah. I don't.
We're going to do an FAQ document on all this and get some answers for everyone. So
No, I mean, that's not something to answer. They're valid. I don't see that Acumatica has that button anymore. I
yeah,
know, I
they
know what
just
they're talking about. I mean, that would be for feedback to Acumatica that that doesn't appear to be available anymore.
okay. You mentioned a keyboard shortcut to filter a GI on a selected cell value. What was that shortcut again? Control F brings up my browser's find in page.
Sure, yeah, I know. I do that sometimes too. I hit the wrong thing. It's just Shift F.
Shift F. Excellent.
I might have said Control F too, because it's just the the brain. I might have said, oh, it's Control F, but it's Shift F. Yeah, just make sure you're actually highlighted to that particular cell.
Okay, if we have existing custom fields added to the UI in Classic, will there be conflict when switching to Modern?
I wouldn't say I wouldn't call it conflict per se, but that's a negative way of putting it. No, it's just that those fields may not be visible on the screen if you just switch to modern UI. There might just be some changes that might need to happen to that customization project, either by whoever the original author is, or depending on what exactly that project looks like. Your partner can modify that. If it's a customization project that's handled by your partner, or if it's an ISV solution, you'd want to go back to the ISV on that.
Okay, if we create a custom field on sales order, would the configuration on invoice allow us to pull that as well? So like if you create a custom field and you want to see it on other screens.
um yes, and depends. It depends on what I'm giving you a little bit of a political answer here, right? If you want to, if the customization is simply like we're going to visually make the sales order look a certain way, and then you go to invoice, there are certain things that get copied over automatically from a sales order to an invoice. You have to remember that these are screen modifications. So if the data is not there, the data is not there, right? So if the data is not getting passed automatically from the sales order to the invoice, simply doing that screen customization isn't necessarily going to accomplish it. When I was showing the example before of the sales order with the note, and talking about that passing through to the shipment, some of that is because of our order type settings in Acumatica of what happens when you copy or when you process a sales order, right? So when we look at things like, I'll pull up anyone here. If we look at our order types down here, there's particular copy settings on how each order type in Acumatica functions. So it will do things like copy notes, copy attachments, copy this to the shipment or to the invoice, right? So this is where that copy is really happening of the data that's moving from one place to another, whereas the screen customization, depending on what you're doing, is you're modifying the screen, if that makes sense.
Okay, there's two kind of similar questions about building screen views, either based on individuals or based on a role. So I think we can kind of combine those, right?
Yeah. So if you are doing, you have from Modern UI, you have the ability to do personal customizations, and then you also have like the system-wide customizations. I don't believe that there is any way that you could do a particular customization for just a group of users in a particular like security group. Like I I don't think that it's possible to say, 10 of my salespeople, I want to have this, and 10 of my other salespeople, I want to have a totally different screen. Um, I've not found a way to do that. You can, when it comes to things like dashboards, do that as role based, and some of the features there with the dashboards, but not with the screen customizations. I could be wrong. That could be something or that could be something that's coming, but I have not seen a way to do the screen customizations. It's like for a particular team.
Okay. What is she clicking to bring up that column configurator?
What is she clicking to bring up the column? Sure. Let me go to here on like column configurator here on the sales order screen. It's just a little tiny wheel cog. And that's the same icon that you're going to see in the top right on Modern UI of, that's your, I think it used to be what we would call like the custom menu, and it's all here. A couple of other things I want to mention about Modern UI and just like the settings, preferences. Like you noticed here, you'll see this switch to classic UI. Or if I was in a Modern UI screen, you would see switch to Modern UI. If you have that option available, that will um, change that particular screen either to classic or to modern, but that is something that's changing for all users when you make that change. So if you have access rights to do that, just understand that you're not just changing it for yourself. And it is just changing it on that one particular screen also, but it's changing it for everyone. The other thing I want to kind of make a note of too is under your site preferences now, you're going to notice a couple of different options here. We have the default UI and then the Outlook add-in UI too. The Outlook add-in previously, I believe, might have had some issues with using the modern UI. I believe those have been fixed in a recent update. But here would change the UI for the whole system for all the screens. But again, this is not something that people should just lightly do, especially if you have customizations or ISV solutions installed on your system. It should be done with a certain level of thought and roll that out to where it makes sense to make that change. But that is how you can go in and toggle some of those changes automatically. Any other questions, Darcy, from the chat?
Yeah, I think you just covered where do we switch to modern for all screens. So good. This one, it says, this is a total lob and very self-serving about a particular problem I'm having. Feel free to ignore it, but we'll throw it out there.
Love it.
Someone in my instance favorited all of the action buttons on a screen, and that got rid of the 3-dot menu, but I want to unfavorite them. I'm reading online, and it seems like we need a customization project to change something that got changed just by clicking a star. Is there an easy way to hide buttons without the 3-dot menu? You got to that one. It was, this is pretty specific, but I thought we'd try.
Yeah. Um, yeah, I don't know if the person is on modern UI and I'm not sure where they favorited things or what. But I mean, feel free to email whoever I don't know who that person is, but feel free to just,
I do. I can get you in touch with
shoot me an email. I would be happy to have a conversation about it.
them.
I love a weird challenge.
I think that's all the questions for now. I mean, I tried to get everybody, but some of them were kind of overlapping, and you were covering them as we go. So there was one nice
Awesome.
comment that someone said, "Love that you can make the document notes visible on the UI directly now." So
I mean, like I learned so many things going through this process about all the different stuff that was available with modern UI. And I know it's so silly to say, but like doing that note thing gave me so much joy. It's so small, but so many people ask for seeing those notes directly on the screen. So yeah, I had to share that one. It it's so simple, but it's so wonderful. And honestly too, I mean, I can't downplay enough, like, being able to do things with the tabs, like reordering tabs, and, you know, just being able to make the screens look nicer, right? And not see a whole bunch of things that you didn't see, that you don't need to. Um, I love also just switching back over into our classic UI. And yeah, this one's particularly green. But if we go into like a sales order, just to understand the difference, right? Of if we look at a sales order screen and all those multitude of tabs that come up on the screen, and depending on what your resolution is or whatever, when you're sizing it down and then trying to see all that information, right? um, that in comparison to the experience that users have on modern UI, where they're literally just seeing such a cleaner view of their information and the things that truly matter to them and what they're doing, right? It really has proven to be a much more easier experience for people. And even just from a customization and development standpoint, sure. And I don't I don't want to downplay, because I do know from a development standpoint that, for ISV solutions and, depending on how complex some of those integrations and customizations are, it might be a significant amount of work to move that over to modern UI. I don't want to downplay that at all. But the reward for moving to modern UI and the experience of using the software in modern UI is a much more faster and friendlier user experience, so the sooner that people, can get in and start trying to adopt modern UI, as a part of their Acumatica instances is, even better. 26R2 will be here before we know it too, like, so especially if you're on a version of Acumatica, if you're on a version that's like 25R1 or earlier, you should be asking your partner, when are we going to upgrade? Right? Like 25R1 or earlier, you should be upgrading at this point. If you're on 25R2, you should be looking at getting a test instance and making sure, if you're not on modern UI, that in your test instance, you are looking at modern UI or testing out some of those ISV solutions or customizations that you might have, right? So it's really nice that, if you have the space available to do it, where you can have a sandbox tenant, or a test instance. If you can, get a copy of your live, switch it to modern UI in that test instance, then you can just feel more comfortable with it, feel more comfortable with those customizations and everything else, before making the full switch. Because again, 26R2 will be here before we know it. And I think that's probably all we'll go over for today, but I do want to also bring up, back to acu-connect and back to, our sponsors. And let me go play from current slide. I want to thank again our sponsors, and also I want to thank acu-connect. I have been involved in acu-connect for a number of years, and I love being a part of the community. I had someone ask me earlier today, "Hey, should I join acu-connect?" And I was like, why would you not? Like it's free to join. We do a ton of different events, all different kinds of events also. So, if one particular event isn't your jam, you might find another event that is more something that makes sense. And I also want to say again, just a save the date about the acu-connect virtual conference, and our upcoming events too in June with those 30 CRM tips. But also with that acu-connect virtual conference, we're always looking for other speakers and volunteers to give sessions. So consider volunteering to do your own session where you talk about a particular topic or a solution. We're always looking for additional speakers too.
Yeah, Nicole, registration actually is open for the free virtual conference. You can just go to that events calendar or just go to acu-connect.com, community, and acu-connect 2026. And that's where you can get your free registration locked in.
Do it.
Yeah, do it. It'll be
Hey.
great. It'll be fantastic. John Case is doing the keynote. We've got a number of Acumatica presenters, but also a number of members from the community. And like Nicole said, we are looking for educational session speakers. If you want to shoot an email to info@acu-connect.com, I can send you the speaker submission form that you can fill out and suggest your topic idea that you'd love to present. Tips and tricks are very popular, or if you have a deep dive into a specific functionality, something like this session, is always a good. We might ask Nicole to repeat it. We probably should have made this a roundtable. The conference is really interactive, so lots of good questions, and the speakers can actually see the questions as they're presenting during the conference. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, and I think, and to your point, Darcy, like I said before too, maybe we will do another, maybe in a month or two, we do another modern UI roundtable, and come back with even more stuff and some of the other things that we didn't necessarily go over today.
Yeah.
I tried to keep it pretty general just so that there would be a little bit of something for everyone, but there's so much with modern UI, whether it be on the development side or on, like I said, on things like import scenarios and generic inquiries. There's so much stuff that we get because of this move to modern UI. So there's a lot more that we could talk about, and a lot more that we could do. So really exciting. Well, thanks everyone. If
Thank you,
there's
Nicole. Thank you, Darcy, for helping with the questions.
No problem. Thanks, Nicole. Great job. Thank you, Chloe. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks everyone for joining. Have a good rest of your day.
Nicole, do you want to put up your contact information or just give it out there if anybody wants to reach out to you with questions?
Oh, sure, absolutely. I didn't have my contact information up, but again, my name is Nicole Ronchetti. I am with Stellar One, and my email address, if you want to reach out to me, is nronchetti@stellar1.io, or you can hit me up on LinkedIn.
Great. Thanks so much.
Thanks, everyone.